The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of that galaxy and direct from our galaxy right here in California, this is ForceCenter presents OtherCenter. I'm Ken Napzok.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
And I'm Jennifer Landa.
And we are here today to have a great discussion. Oh, I'm predicting that already. With the conversation of the roads not taken. Oh, I can't wait. You're gonna get some surprises of paths I almost took here today. We're gonna have a lot of fun discussing that. But before we do that, we want to remind you that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from. For your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. A little bit later, I will have a ForceCenter recommends, an OtherCenter recommends, an audiobook we think you just might want to try out on us. Help the show in the process. Joseph, we always like handling this business up top. It's fun. It's challenging. It's coming from our hearts. What's our ask today?
Yeah, I like the way you said handling business. Let's discuss our spreadsheets for the listeners. No, we like to highlight something. We've talked about this over the years, and we've been doing this for about a year now, where we're just highlighting something that we could use help with because, hey, we used to not be good at asking for help. Now, apparently, we're great at it because we do it all the time, multiple times a week. But the thing that sounds nice to us right now, the SAG-AFTRA strike is continuing. So we're definitely going to be doing OtherCenter for a little while yet. And we'll probably be doing some amount of OtherCenter stuff even once we get back to the galaxy far, far away. We've been hearing some nice things in person and sometimes on social media from people about what you enjoy about the OtherCenter. And it occurs to us that we could really use some reviews on iTunes, some fresh ones that highlight enjoying OtherCenter. So if you've been enjoying the kind of stuff we've been talking about here on OtherCenter, it would be great to leave us a review on, I'm saying iTunes, but it's not called iTunes anymore, is it? It's Apple Podcasts. Please get in a time machine to 2007 and leave us a review on iTunes. And then now here in the present, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts for OtherCenter.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, though, it's still confusing. Having just put out my comedy album through DistroKid, which puts it all those spots, I still have a Apple Music spot and an Apple iTunes spot. I don't understand it. Wherever you can
it's
find
so
it.
Confusing. My wife was in Wisconsin visiting her mom this week. And she can't remember the name of a place. So she kept telling me, like, we're going to the Apple store. I'm like, well, that sounds really exciting. And she's like, no, it's actually just a store that sells apples. So if you're in Wisconsin and you go to that Apple store, also just randomly tell people there that you like our podcast.
I love that. Love that. And head out there. Also, we want to let you know we have a OtherCenter live stream coming your way on YouTube Friday, October 27th at 2 p.m. Pacific. Now, sometimes we get some requests for other time zones. Wherever you are, just go to your phone and go to the time. That's the time, wherever it is, 2 to whatever. If you're at 10 o'clock in London, I have to do the finger counting for the East Coast. Like it's 3 hours. What time? All right. So if an NFL game starts at 10 a.m. here, it's 1 o'clock. Oh, okay, I get it. So 2 p.m. Pacific, Friday, October 27th. A little bit of a pre-Halloween show. I'm not saying we're going to dress up in costume, but Jen, I know you've been working hard on some costumes. So if you show up on air dressed as one, it'll be okay.
Yeah, maybe I can. If I can get it together before then, absolutely.
I don't want to put pressure on you. I know your costumes aren't like what my costumes would be, which is going down to a store and grabbing a mask and a plastic outfit.
There are some good costumes at Target. I'll say. I was just there. There was a cool hot dog looking one that I actually was tempted.
Oh, the Target hot dog is pretty good. The full body one with your face sticking out of it.
Yeah.
The Target hot dog.
Come to our live stream where we'll all be dressed as Target hot dogs. That's a lot.
Right.
Before we get into our main topic, we always like to catch up with life adventures. Once again, we'll just acknowledge up top that the world is a kind of a tough, terrorizing, sad place to just kind of be living in right now. It's hard. It's hard. And sometimes you get overwhelmed. And sometimes I think it's okay just to step away. We send a lot of love out to those in the world going through a lot of pain and suffering. And we we're here to just kind of entertain, but everything's still on our hearts. It's hard not to be. I found myself this weekend outside of traveling, but just having to, all right, I'm not going to watch every YouTube video and highlight and clip and take and pundits diving in. I just need to maybe, not disconnect, but just kind of protect my soul for a bit. So we acknowledge all that's going on.
I have been doing reading, watching various videos that have popped up, and it has been nice to get beyond the limited character Twitter hot take and really spend some time reading and listening and reflecting. Has been that's been good, as opposed to just the bad social media. Two people have an opinion and now they fight.
Right.
Not helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I found myself leaning towards trying to learn and in some cases just relearn the entire history of Middle East and all complicated is not a word that even begins to cover it, but that's where I focus on. But even that can get kind of heavy. So well done there on all of us just kind of trying to put a good face out there. Jen, life adventures, switching gears a bit, but what's been going on? I didn't want to tip your hand a little bit, but I know you've been busy working constantly.
I have been in Furbyville, is what I'm going to call it. I was working on a deep dive on the history of the Furby, the scare and fears around the Furby in 1998-99. And simultaneously, I'm also making a Furby costume for myself. And then I've been wanting to do this for 2 years. I have a stuffed Furby, so not the electronic one. They had the Furby Buddies. And I was going to modify it. I had a Monster High doll that I'd taken the head off, and I was going to shove the body in the stuffed Furby so that the Furby would have arms and legs, and we could pose it and have fun with it in my mind. And my whole family freaked out. They were like, "What are you doing?" They've seen this Furby, by the way. This Furby has been, everyone knows that I've been wanting to do this for 2 years. I have the Monster High doll on my dresser, headless. It's just been sitting there. And finally, Saturday was the day. And I mean, like, literally, like, people were, my children were freaking out. They were getting, like, crying. My husband was like, "What?" Like, I thought he was going to be on my side. Like, it's okay. It's just a toy. No, he was like, "What are you doing? Why are you going to, there's nothing wrong with the Furby." I'm like, "But it has to be an odd body. Like, I want it to be, it's like an art piece." That's how I see it. Like, it's an art piece, right? It's like bridging, like we've talked about, my childhood with my womanhood, and that the two can exist. And it's kind of like grotesque and weird, but that's kind of how, like, that's, I feel like, me. So not that I'm grotesque, but you know what I mean? Weird.
Yes.
So anyways, that was canceled. Furby is still intact. I did buy another Furby, and that one is going to be modified, and I'm going to do it on my own. No one will stop me.
This is great. I think this is sounding like an art piece, a documentary you should make about this. I mean, that's just a beautiful, like, I'm going to physically manifest the emotion of marrying myself at different ages is great. So I think it's all beautiful. And I also love that it does sound like absolute stereotype of mad scientist. Like, you need a castle somewhere in Europe with lightning going off while you make your Furby creations.
Right. I know. I'm sorry to go on and on about this, but it really, I'm so motivated. I actually did something when I was a studio art major. I ripped off the legs of a Cabbage Patch doll, and I had made this, like, sculpture to kind of symbolize what I just talked about. So this is a thread throughout my life that I need to express myself with doll parts.
That's definitely the t-shirt of the episode.
The Furby, my oddball Furby. And there's a whole community, if you guys don't know. There's a whole community. It's an amazing, awesome, wonderful community of people who modify their Furbies in all sorts of wild crabs, long body Furbies. It's really amazing. It's a great subculture.
I can't wait to the next time I need to procrastinate, because I'm going to dive deep on this Furby.
Do it on Etsy. You'll find tons.
I just think that's amazing. People modifying toys has been going on for a long time. In fact, that's how a lot of toys are made, right? Kit bash, all that stuff. I remember in the 80s when, my friends would be like, make custom G.I. Joe figures, and they'd start to tell me how, and I'd just be like, yeah, I can't do that. I'm okay. I'm okay. I want to, but I can't. So good for you, Jen. I hope this is being documented. I trust.
Yeah, I will. I'll document it in the shadows of my kitchen when no one's here. Just stop me.
Organ music playing. Burn, burn. We return to the lab. Love it. My adventures were pretty direct, but fun. I had a couple days out in New York with Mark Ellis as we did some shows at the New York Comedy Club, and a lot of folks showed up, folks that I know. Shout out to Eddie Harrell and Paul Denuzzo and all those PA people out there who were very nice to not only come to the show, but hang out afterwards and say some very nice things about OtherCenter and all those kind of things that we do. And that's always a good time. It was a quick trip. I came back. I slept 13 hours. I haven't done that. Like, we're talking a legit fell asleep 8 o'clock Saturday night, woke up 9 o'clock Sunday. It was great. So that a lot of fun last week, releasing my comedy album in my day. Thanks to those who supported it on Bandcamp or listened on many streaming services, many that I've never heard of till. It was a good thing, not only a good thing to experience, but just, this is a small step for the larger scale of the world. But for me, emotionally, it was a big step to take a step forward and release something. And you guys have all been nice about that. So that's it. I mean, it was just the simplest trip to New York. Took a lot of naps, went to this place called Essex Market, and just had good food and good shows. And that was it. So it sounds like I should have more exciting things to say from 3 days in New York, but no, that was it.
Well, I'm waiting with bated breath for food specificity. What did you eat?
Yes.
So Essex Market is just it's like I call it a community food court. It's like if you go to the farmers market where we go to 3rd and Fairfax, it's just like that, but on 2 or 3 levels on the corner of Essex and near Houston. And it was great. So you had a lot of choices. So there was a big vegan place for Grace to hit up, and I had some vegan treats as well. And then a good pizza spot. And I have a complicated relationship with New York pizza. I don't like it. I don't think it's everything it's heralded to be. But this spot wasn't like a street slice. It wasn't like one of those little shops that Ellis kept going to Williamsburg Pizza. He loves that stuff. These were mostly squares. Prepared a little different, wilder options. They had a vegan option as well. I thank places for having that. It makes our lives a little easier when Grace and I are traveling. And it's good. And there was also tacos. I had tacos and pizza, like you do.
And for your pizza topping, did you get chicken, mushroom, and artichoke hearts like we ordered on our? We didn't order. We ordered on our live stream. The last live stream.
Try that. I do want to try that pizza in real life. No, just
I'll have the beige deluxe. Yeah,
straightforward. Just a cheese and then a pepperoni. And the second day I had a cilantro pepperoni with cilantro pepperoni sausage one, which was great.
That sounds good.
You take the bite and you're like, heartburn is here. It has arrived. So it was good. It was all good. And the weather was a good time. So that was my trip. But Joseph, you had a productive non-trip, I would say, in your life.
I had a trip into my very soul. Yeah, it was. The sad part of my last couple of weeks is that my wife and I have been passing like ships in the night. I got home last Monday at like 11 p.m. and then she left at 4 a.m. To go visit her mom in Wisconsin. But then because she was being out of town, I have a horror feature I want to work on. And I had a lot of the outline, and I really need to get moving on asking people to be involved, figuring out budget. And like, I keep daydreaming about like all the stuff I can maybe start doing if a script is done. So since she was out of town for 6 days, I tried to clear my schedule as much as possible and just set the goal of just finish the first draft. I posted about it on social media to get encouragement and also trap myself because people are always encouraging. every once in a while, if I post something like, I'm going to try to write this in this amount of time, every once in a while, somebody mean comes out of the woodwork. But in general, people are really supportive. But if anybody's like, yeah, that's not going to happen, it's really good. I'm going to show them is a good motivation for me. So yeah, I did not think I was going to make it. But then Sunday, I wrote 42 pages in one day, which is just like, at that point, it's just the physical labor of typing that much that's the hardest hardest part. But I did a little post on social media. Sometimes when I talk about trying to write a draft in a short amount of time, people can be, again, fewer people, but people can be a little like, well, yeah, but it's probably crap, right? And for me, the whole thing is first drafts are always rocky. But they kind of should be. And I don't think speed equals art. You need to get the idea out and see what works and see what doesn't. And I think the more you write, the more you know yourself, and the better your first drafts get. And this is a better first draft than other first drafts I've written, because that's the way it goes. And I did a social media post about this that I'll finish posting other places. But it really helps me to think of the first drafts as like monsters, like did perfectly in sync with your Furby thoughts, Jennifer, of like, yep, sometimes they're going to have like a weird limb that's not where it's supposed to be, or, oh, whoops, they have 8 eyes instead of 2 that I meant to give it. Sometimes you can just fix those flaws easily once the draft is done. And sometimes you're like, actually, maybe this should have 8 eyes on its back. And that's what makes it cool. Yeah. So I think that really helps me get past all of the analysis paralysis and the anxiety, and it needs to be perfect, and just try to have the thought of finish your monster, and see what you have after that first draft, because the first draft is just the beginning.
Should you want to add screenwriting coach and author of screenwriting books, just because finish your monster is a great title.
I want to do something with the idea of finish your monster, because it just makes me so happy. Maybe I can work on some just poster, and then the image can be Jennifer's Furby.
Finish your monster. Lovely. Well done, sir. That's an accomplishment.
Excited to work on the next drafts.
Yeah, that's where writing is made, kids. Finish that monster. Edit. That's where I sometimes would get real afraid when it comes to screenwriting. I don't know. 112 pages of suck. Seems like I'll stop there. So I needed Finish Your Monster by Joseph Scrimshaw. That was one road I could have taken, Joseph, but there's many roads in my lives I could have taken, which is what we're talking about today. What do we got?
Yeah. This has been a fun journey for OtherCenter, because sometimes we'll be talking about one topic and then it'll make me think we could really talk about that more. So we have talked near this idea of roads not taken, the paths that we choose. So I thought it might be fun to dig into a little bit more the paths that we thought we might take when we were younger, or even more recently, the paths we thought we might take, the paths we actually did take, and also very important to me, the paths that we can still choose before us. Because I think as long as you are alive, there are still paths to choose, as much as society sometimes wants to make us think we're done. We are not. So I want to start here with you, Jennifer. When you were a kid, did you imagine what you would grow up to be? In your imagination, what were you? What was your life like as an adult from your kid perspective?
I don't know if I ever actually, I think I did believe it. I always wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be Punky Brewster. Then when I was a little bit older, I wanted to be Claire Danes, My So-Called Life. I used to, on Saturday mornings, because my parents would sleep in, so I would wake up and I would grab my cereal and I would do cereal commercials. So at a young age, but I don't know how, I really wanted to be a kid in a commercial. And I made that dream come true to some extent. I always envisioned myself being an actor in some form or fashion.
Well, that is a well done. You did it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the other part of that, which is like the reality when you're not working and how it really is like ebbs and flows in this business. I just thought, once I start doing commercials or I'll book a show and that's my life and I'll be set.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about there about mentorship and helping people find the balance between the dream, the reality, all those things. Yeah, but that's fascinating. Did you talk to your parents about it? Did they know that you were doing secret cereal commercials and that you wanted to be an actor above all else?
Yeah, we had a friend who used to drive up to LA to do commercials, and he would work. And I was fascinated, and I begged my mom. I said, please. And she said, no, I'm not. She was a teacher. She's like, I can't be leaving work to take you on an audition at the drop of a hat. She was like, plus, you don't want to be an actor. She wanted me to be a concert pianist. So, so that was the preferred path. She thought that acting was just like a crapshoot, which, she was right. But
not wrong.
She was not wrong.
Unlike the guaranteed success of concert pianist,
exactly.
When you got real, parents who are not politically conservative, but just sort of life conservative, and they really want you to get a solid job. They're always, be a concert pianist. You can always get work.
I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did she want to be a concert pianist and pass the dream on to you?
Yeah, she loved music. She was in the choir. She was a choir director. She directed musical theater in her free time. So yeah, she was very much, and she saw that I had an ability. And so it was like, and it's very much being, this Mexican American family like that. It's a luxury to have piano lessons. And it felt very much like an exclusive space. And for the first time in her life, I was kind of like getting us to these opportunities and these like quote unquote white spaces. I definitely think that was part of it.
You were opening doors. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. That's great. Ken, did you imagine what you would grow up to be?
This is going to be a fun episode. I'm going to start a little with some depression mixed in with this. I'm just warning people. When you ask this question, what did you imagine you grew up to be? I had a lot of different paths I was going to take, but all led to like I don't know, family and kids and just kind of a car. I remember thinking, what car am I going to get? I didn't know a 1981 Ford Fairmont was in my future for my first car, but I a lot of those flashes. And so no matter what choice, there was a lot of different career choices we're going to dive into. That was kind of the image, because it just seemed like that was what you do. And for a lot of folks, and Jen, you can attest, yeah, you do. You married, kids, and that kind of thing happens. But there was a depression hit early, and I used to sit a lot and think, I'm going to be alone, and I'm going to be in my apartment on Christmas, and I'm not going to have anyone around. I would cry. It was this hit early. This is why depression definitely can chemically based, and it's a thing you got to battle from a lot of different directions. And there were some moments in my life where I remember thinking, oh, that was more right than I wanted it to be because of my job and sitting at home. But I ended up having a good time alone, playing Red Dead, eating fast food on a Christmas. Okay. But it was strong feelings about this. I used to deal with this a lot of that. Yeah. I'm going to be, no matter what career choice, I'm going to be this person, this sad, lonely person. So I'm not. I've had those moments. So a lot of the images are still present. Changes, the desire to have kids did not stick with me. In a happy relationship, it's not a married relationship. We're not necessarily thinking that's in the plans. But so I'm happy to say I ended up getting there. The happier, sunnier visions found their way to me.
Did you get any pressure or feedback from your parents about career specifics? Did they push you toward anything?
They did not. As Therapy Center continues, one thing I've come to terms with is there was a little bit of hands off in the wrong areas, right? So if I was to go outside and it was 60 degrees, not having a jacket was near a death sentence, right?
Yep.
And there was a lot of that, and a lot of don't try things versus probably needed to be pushed a little more. And that's something I battle with, and I've discussed other times today, where it set up a lot of that kind of failure down the line, in the sense of it's different from, hey, I want to be an actor. No, the reality of driving up to Hollywood, I get where maybe your mom might come from, Jen, on the surface. Wasn't that, but there was never, I was set to go, we'll get into some of it later, but I was set to go on the 4-year college plan. You choose your plan in high school when what kind of classes you want to take. Are you going to go to a 4-year university? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that because I had this particular plan. And I stopped. I pulled out of that in 10th grade, and my parents never questioned it. You know what I mean? Like, that would have been the time to be like, well, why? What do you want to do? And so I didn't get that. And therefore sometimes an enemy of mine online once described me as someone who just bops along in the water and waits for the tides to take them somewhere. And there's a kernel of truth in that I battle a lot. And I think it stems from that, where a lot of what I'm talking about, the family, the college, career, family, this and that just happens. You don't have to work for any of it. You don't have to, I don't mean like work, bootstrap works, but just like, you don't have to make a decision. It just happens. And so this is the only real depressing answer to this question. So that's where I started. So when I thought about the future, I just thought, I don't know, I'll get there.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you're alone. And I think, it's come up with the three of us. I think having some parents who overlap in some ways of, my parents were up in my business. In some ways I did not want them to be. But when I look back of like, they could have encouraged me. Like, they were generally supportive of things, but it was sort of like, oh, you doing that? Cool. Hope it works out. But not like, have you thought about this? Should you look in this way? Point that direction? What about
Right.
So they were not there in some of the ways that would have been really great for them, for them to be. I think you're talking about being much younger, Ken, but I remember in high school starting to think like, I am either going to, accomplish my dreams, or like, I am going to be living in a hotel on the outskirts of Vegas. Alone. Like I really had like, I think it's going to be one or the other. I really do. I really do.
Yeah.
I don't know why I obsessed on that, but hey, it's somewhere in between. I think for part of the reason I wanted to start with this question is I think I have a bias, but a life experience that makes me think about it differently. So I want to be sure to hear and understand what other people are thinking. I don't know how it got into my head, but the possibilities always just seemed open, and it wasn't out of ego. It was when I was very, very young. I don't know if I don't remember it. I haven't looked it up or Googled it, but there was some sort of Sesame Street little like song bumper. You can be anything. You can do anything. And I can't remember if it was humans or Muppets, but there was like a little song, and, I think it was Grover would spin, and then he would be, a firefighter or a doctor. At the time he wasn't like a data entry specialist, but it was like, careers. And I think I somehow internalized that is not you get to pick firefighter or astronaut and be one, but rather, hey, Grover told me I'll get to do all this bleep when I'm older. All this bleep. You can do it all. I remember, I think it's just something internal, and I don't know where it came from. I remember listening to the radio in like 1982.
Yeah.
So I was very young. I think it was a Joan Jett song, and remember like really liking like the way she sang another part, and then going, well, when I'm a singer, I wonder how I'll sing that. And I think I had that perspective when I was young of like that's what life is that you get to try everything. And I think it has been a gift and a curse for me that I have tried lots of different things. And the gift is, having lots of different experiences, having lots of different skills. But then it's made it harder as I get older, and all those Grover options are like, astronaut, no. Firefighter, no. The second generation Joan Jett, not going to happen. And like getting to deal with the reality of not doing and being everything.
Yeah. Having that hit you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Grover. It's my fault. That's my fault. It's not actually Grover's fault. But we're
falsely accusing Grover. It could have been Kermit.
Kermit
It could have been one of the humans.
Yeah.
It probably was. I don't remember their name, so I'm not going to guess. But like, yeah, they should have come with like, and pick one, not all of them. Anyway, speaking of picking one, that's kind of at the heart of some of what we're talking about. Ken gave us some previews over email when I sent out this topic idea. So Ken, I'll start with you. What were some of the career paths that you imagined and that you didn't end up doing, or at least you haven't done yet, and maybe you still will?
Yeah, you know what? That's one. Who knows? So there's a lot of things, and a lot like you, Jen. Some of the desires that I ended up having later on in life, creatively and professionally, were in place. Talking into microphones. I remember I used to host a cooking show in my kitchen when I was like 10.
Oh my gosh!
So a lot of things. Now I haven't hosted a kitchen show yet, but there was two big ones that I want to highlight. And there was a third one that was minor. And I'll start with that. I always danced with the idea of being a police officer. My uncle was and ended up doing 55 years total in the LAPD, active in reserve, and his son, my cousin Chad, is approaching 25 years of LAPD. Actually, I think just past that. So there was that side, and I did go into the public safety side. And my uncle every year said, "You got to take that test." That was his catchphrase: "Take that test." And while I'm glad I didn't. I think I would have been a good police officer, and I would have maybe hard to make differences inside departments, but I think I would have been good. But I didn't take that path. But early on, and that set in early. But the two early on ones were a park ranger and a baseball.
What was the second one?
A baseball announcer.
Oh yeah,
which doesn't seem like a surprise, but that was the one that I was just talking about. I went into high school. I definitely wanted to play, and even before I got cut from even making the ninth grade freshman baseball team, I knew my skills as an athlete weren't where I wanted them to be. But my knowledge of the game, my love of the game was. I looked at, I believe it or not, used to be good at math, and I was looking at like a baseball statistician, someone who was worked with the clubs and that kind of stuff, But I did want to be an announcer and loved them. Loved all my, the Vin Scullys of the world, Al Michaels and Bob Costas, all those people I grew up watching. So I did study, and Syracuse was one of the biggest colleges for sports broadcasting. And that's where I was going to go, Syracuse, New York. Went into ninth grade, like that's the plan. And then by 10th grade, I don't know what happened. Just the fear of it all. We can get into that discussion some other time, maybe even later in the episode. Because again, I want to be happy. So that didn't happen. But the park ranger one was early because that was the only trip we took every year was to go to Yosemite. And I was obsessed with who are these people in these wide brimmed hats helping us or telling us cool facts. And do they live here? And what is this? And I remember my parents explaining it. Park rangers, they live here and they work here. And
they're like forest cops.
Yeah. And I was fascinated with that as a kid. And I loved Yosemite. And it bums me out I haven't been there since 1994. I want to get back. Now, I didn't know the park system was as big as it was. And I'm glad that is. And later on, I'd watch that Ken Burns doc on the parks, national parks. So you're not just going to go to Yosemite. You don't apply for Yosemite. You could be anywhere, right? It's one of those things. But I was obsessed with it from like first to like sixth grade. The idea of living there, being part of it. I'm not like a super outdoorsy person, but I just loved that Yosemite Valley. I loved the interaction and I loved the experience as a kid. I'm having these memories made, and a lot of it's because I'm on a nature walk with a park ranger who's telling me what kind of bear might be there, what kind of daffodil that is, and what kind of pine cone. I just loved it. And so I did actually look into it a little bit as a youngster. But by the time I got fifth or sixth grade, the performance bug and more of that kind of stuff started to hit.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I do have a friend who is a park ranger that I knew well in the Twin Cities, and she has since moved to Alaska, to Denali.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
She's great. She's a fascinating, fun life where, you're mixed, a very urban life mixed with a very, very in tune with nature life. The park ranger thing makes me think of a kind of a sub question that I want to ask you both quickly is I feel like when we were young, everything like that Sesame Street was very like, there were specific career paths that were easily identifiable. Like these are the people in your neighborhood. Like you're a postal worker or a park ranger, you know, and there wasn't like, nobody was doing Sesame Street sketches. Mr. Rogers didn't say, and here's the gig economy worker or even here's the person who works night at the supermarket. It was careers. We only heard about careers, not jobs to make money. Careers.
Right.
Do you think that's true? And do you think it's still true today, Jennifer, from your kid's perspective?
Yes, 100%. And I think that there's two different types of children. There are the children that when you ask them in kindergarten, which I witnessed over Zoom, what do you want to be when you grow up? And there's the kids that are just like that. I want to be a fire person. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a dentist. I want to be like very, career paths, right? And then there's the kids, like my kid. I want to be a mermaid. And I share this story because it really speaks to who she is as a person. And she's not alone, right? There's kids that are fantastical. The world is their oyster. Why not be a mermaid? Why not be a ballerina? Whatever, right? And so I think that there are the kids that and a lot of those kids that are very literal, like the doctor, the lawyers, they probably have heard it from their parents oftentimes, right? Or they've seen it from their parents who are those things. I knew about teachers and those kinds of professions because my mom talked to me about it. But I knew that I didn't fit in that path. I always knew that those types of traditional jobs, those career paths were not like, they never called to my soul. But I think for some kids that does call to their soul and they like it. And they still talk about that on Sesame Street. They still do. They obviously highlight the arts and things like that, of course, but very much, it still is very much like, like old school. Yeah. You can be a fire person.
Ken, do you think it would have helped you if the world or your parents made distinctions between like careers, like be a politician or a plumber versus, hey, you assistant manager at Best Buy, that's cool too if you just want to make money and get your joy elsewhere? Do you think it would have helped you to have a distinction between career and everybody needs to work to make money?
That's a great big what if. I don't think I watched what happened with my father, who was an artist, a great hand drawn like 2D artist. He wanted to be a cartoonist, that classic cartoonist, and he wasted those skills. They withered away, and he did got the job at ITT Tech and got kids and this and that. But I wasn't discouraged from either direction, but I wish I would have understood. I wish there were, maybe that's the answer. I just wish I were a little more hands-on and describing it to me in the process of going out and getting it. Even wanting to be a baseball player probably wasn't a realistic dream for the moment I had it. But you can train, you can practice, I was not shown that. You want this, be this. I once sat down with my tax guy I have now. He's a fascinating character. He's from Australia. He's a good looking dude. And he just, you walk in, you're like, this guy's my tax guy. This is not the sketch character that I expected. What got you into taxes? He's like, oh, I always wanted to do it. I just like helping people. And it was just this, what? That's amazing. To your point, Jen, I just never was drawn to something that didn't have weird hours. But anyway, I wish a lot more of that was explained.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I do think it is very good to encourage kids to use their skills and figure out what they love. I just think it's kind of fascinating to find the balance with like, sometimes what works out great for people. Like I have friends that I love in the Twin Cities who do endless amounts of theater, and then they have a day job, and that's the balance that they need in their life. And I'm curious to see how we continue to reflect to kids. Shoot the highest, find your dream, figure out a way to be a mermaid, but also if you have to be a mermaid on weekends, how'd you like to make money?
You know, and what's crazy is that there was a study that came out recently when they polled young people about what they want to be when they grow up. And it was like 80% want to be influencers or YouTubers.
Yeah.
That is the new
Mhm.
mermaid,
Mhm.
if you will. Like this idea that, you know, you too can become a YouTuber and make millions of dollars, like these kids who unbox their toys.
I know two ladies here in town I'm acquaintances with who are YouTube or who are influencers, not YouTubers, influencers, and mostly they pose in mermaid costumes. So, Jen, it's possible.
There you go. Merging the two.
Mermaid Furby influencer. Can't wait to see that dream come true. Thanks for following me off the path as we talked about some of that stuff. Jennifer, what were some of the career paths you imagined that you didn't end up doing?
Let's see. I wanted to be, for Concert Penis was presented to me and that terrified me, never appealed to me. Photojournalist was one.
Ooh.
I used to love National Geographic as a child. And obviously my dad, who was a reporter, who was also a photographer. And when I was in high school, I discovered photography and I just loved it. And the idea that you could go and like immerse yourself in a community and photograph it to tell these people's stories, I loved that. I have a cousin who would travel all over the world and his stuff was in National Geographic. So that's probably where I got that idea. And then the last one is, as a reporter, I wanted to be a reporter. I thought that would be fun, but I thought, well, I struggled with the idea that I'm a little too weird. And I like to be like, I like to be silly. I like to make jokes. And I had that disconnect where I was like, how am I going to present the news and have people take me seriously when I also want to do these silly things? And that's probably the main reason why I didn't pursue it. Because I was like, oh, that means I have to wear a suit. I have to look professional and I'll have to move to Arkansas. That's what everyone told me. I asked multiple people and they're like, you have to go to a small market. And I went, oh, what if I don't like it? And like Ken, you were saying, it's like that risk. I just didn't want to take it. And so instead I took the other risk of acting, but it is funny. Maybe there's multiple dimensions, multiple other people, versions of Jennifer taking those paths.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's part of what we were talking about in a recent episode that made me want to talk about this is like those multiverse stories, you know, I think everything everywhere all at once. That's part of the reason those stories are so powerful is thinking about all the different versions of ourselves that we could be. I'm seeing a reality where you ended up being like a fun, colorful, wacky weather person on a morning show.
Yeah, I like the morning. See, I didn't realize that until it was, I don't want to say too late, but I realized, there's like pop culture reporters. And when I was at E, I tried to figure out how I could do that. And again, I was met with, well, you need to leave Los Angeles and go to Arkansas and get your reporting chops. Ha 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 for all the hosts that have their strong journalism backgrounds and pop culture. So anyways, it was a different time. Very different time.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I've got a long list of things that have got to do, because I've worn lots of different creative hats, but then there's still some stuff that I haven't done and stuff that would take like, that's kind of takes full commitment. You got to fully shoot for that. Like saying, I want to be a journalist. So here's the path. It means moving to a small market. As a kid, one of the things I thought I was going to do is be a comic book artist or writer. Because I was good at drawing and that's what people encouraged. And I got my major in visual art, painting and drawing, and fell much more in love with performing. But that's still but someday I will write or draw a comic book. And it's weird now to live in a time where, there are a lot of indie comic books and you can kickstart pretty much anything, or at least, try to. Right. So some of the dreams I still have are really about time of I could absolutely write a comic book, maybe illustrate it, probably not, probably hire someone and do a Kickstarter for it. But then what else am I not focusing on if I do that? Yeah. So that's kind of a definitely a path not taken. when I was in college and getting into performance and falling in love with the singers of the mid to late 20th century, Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and all those people, like I really wanted to be a singer. And I worked it into sketches and stuff like that. And I took a singing class at the U, and the first thing in the singing class was everybody just brought in a song they liked with no accompaniment and just sang, so the teacher could see where is everybody at. So I sang a Dean Martin song, and I was doing comedy, and I was hungry for attention at the time, so I did some bits and people laughed. I was like, that was great, and people laughed and were happy. And then she was like, so you did a thing called jumping around keys all over the place. And yeah, I do not have, I can't hear notes. I'm very tone deaf. And it didn't help after this long class of struggling, where this class basically smashed that dream. After this long class, struggle through this class, the teacher was very nice. And she's like, if anybody needs extra help on your final song that you prepare, here's the office hours, you can sign up and I can help you. And she was like, okay, so here's what I'm going to do for you is I'm actually going to let you sing this lower than I let people sing it. And I was like, why didn't you let me do that at the beginning? And she's like, every man who takes this class thinks they have a really deep voice. And I'm sick of it. And so I will wait and decide for myself if a man actually does have a deep singing voice. Since everyone tries to claim they do.
Wow. That's yeah. That's wonderful.
So it's one of those things. Like, I bet if I took a lot of classes, I could get better at it. But it's just, that's always been one of those. What if?
I could have seen the crooner you. I could see that path.
Yeah, I mean, the mood wise, attitude wise, everything. Yeah. It would have been great. Yeah. One other thing that I want to ask you, but I guess, Ken, I think I kind of know the answer to this. So when I got done with college, I just wanted a job to make money. So I got the job at what was Kinko's at the time, now FedEx. But then I'm obsessive, and the job kind of was this fun challenge, and I had a good manager. So I got to be assistant manager in like a year, and like doubled my pay, and was like making good money. And suddenly there was this like, oh, I could be a Kinko's manager, and at that time make a lot of money and just kind of be set. And then I quit the job because I was like, that's not what I want to do. But there is a world where just like, I could just be like a super regular human who has like money in a 401k and retire. Jennifer, did you ever have that window where like a kind of more normal, not artistic path presented itself to you that you could have taken?
No, I don't think so. I'm trying to, maybe that's my problem. No. And we'll talk about that later, about just kind of stumbling upon a lot of creative jobs. And I guess the most normal would be when I was producing at E. I'd go, there at 9 o'clock in the morning. I would work late hours, of course, but it was like I was going every day to my desk, writing, editing, shooting in the field. And that to me felt very normal and almost too stifling, which is why I left, because I wanted to be an actor. I guess that was the closest thing. I did work at at CBS Television City. I worked in the production supervisor's office for a while. And that was like very much like administrative duties. And that was really hard. That was really hard. It was very laborious, and just, it was exciting to be able to be there and to learn a lot and talk with the production supervisors. But you kind of have to be a very particular type of person. Like a type A person might do really well in that situation with organization. I'm not. So I could do it, but I didn't enjoy it at all. So, but it was a good experience nonetheless.
That is a great distinction. And I think sometimes what can muddy us up as we choose different paths is what can you do versus what do you want to do. Right. Is important. Ken, what's a significant moment that helped lead you to where you are today? And was it a big choice that you made, or was it happenstance, luck, out of your control? It just happened.
I talked about some last week with the risks and the actual decision to leave the day job of 17 years to go to digital media and all that kind of stuff. So I don't want to rehash that. I would call that pretty big. But even before that, I think I do have to go to my first steps to LA back in 98, because I didn't, I had the desires to get to another city. There was other cities to consider, New York, Chicago, Toronto, anywhere that had like an improv, a sketch house, like a Second City or a Groundlings or something like that. But I didn't, keeping in line what I said earlier, like I didn't know how to make that happen. I didn't have a lot of help in that regard. I think my parents were excited for me to maybe leave the house, but then again, I don't know if my mom was, to be honest. And there was never, I had to figure it out on my own. And I did. And when it finally, I had lost my radio job and I was working at the local movie theater in our town in Arroyo Grande, Festival Cinemas up there. And my other two friends were heading down to LA to Cal State Northridge and to Cal Arts to study their chosen fields. And there was a chance of, all right, you have nothing, right? Like you have a $5 hour movie theater job. You can't get back into radio right now. It's because the market thing. I was started in a small market in my hometown, but you're right, Jen, that there's this, question of if you want to be a baseball announcer, you don't go to NBC, you go to Orem, Utah, where you call rookie league ball. And I didn't, beyond not knowing how to do that, I didn't know if I wanted to do that. So there was a lot of that. But the decision to go to LA, I always joke there was a little bit of safety in that because it was 2.5 hours south of my folks. But I did it, and I made it at one of those moments where I made a choice. Yes, I'm doing this and figuring it out. And we're going to, share four of us going to share a 3-bedroom apartment, and we're going to figure it, that's, especially at the time, was a little out of character because I would have just kind of, I don't know, I guess I'll end up there someday. And the next thing you know, I never do, that was a big moment where it was like, I had some sketch improv. I'm going to be on Saturday Night Live. That's what I want to do. That you could toss that aside, but just getting there to pursue a creative entertainment, artistic career was the big choice.
Yeah, that is huge. That is absolutely huge. Yeah, I think for myself, I get into it deeper on maybe other episodes, but I think I had a lot of people were supportive of me getting to one level, and I very, very rarely had any sort of encouragement to be like, well, shoot bigger next time. I literally had one friend say to me, like, is this enough for you now?
Yeah.
And that sticks with me. But part of the reason I wanted to ask this question is for me, a lot of where I have ended up now, including this podcast, all spirals out of one thing that was not entirely under my control. So I had got various feedback that we'll talk about more later of that. Actually, it's fine. Just be really good in Minneapolis, almost the market thing of like, be great in a smaller market and the world will come calling. And I think people meant well. And I think that was real bad advice. Yeah. But I did my best to be, successful in theater and comedy in Minneapolis. And a person I'm now, very happy to call a good friend, Bill Corbett of Riff Tracks and Mystery Science Theater 3000. He lives in the Twin Cities because he came there for a playwriting grant way back when. That's how he got involved with Mystery Science Theater. We had met briefly in passing at a couple things, but he'd come to my shows and he really liked them, and he wanted to do something different and wanted to do a show at the San Francisco Sketch Fest. So he just reached out of the blue and said, "Hey, do you want to work together and write and perform a show at Sketch Fest?" And we did. And almost everything in my life that has happened spirals from him just reaching out and going, "Hey, I'll ask this guy to do a show with me." Because that's what eventually caused me to move to Los Angeles. There is a direct chain of me meeting Ken from that event of the play that we ended up writing got produced by a person who happened to see a reading of it at DragonCon. That person is good friends with Audrey Kearns, who is the person who had me on the panel where Ken and I met at Los Angeles Comic-Con. Yeah. So like, there's a good possibility that if Bill had not just said one day, like, I'll ask that Scrimshaw guy
Mm.
that we wouldn't be doing this podcast.
Mm.
And that is, it's both fun to think about those things that happen that are partially under your control. Bill reached out because I worked hard and he noticed me,
Mm-hmm.
but he also could have just not.
Yeah.
And where would my life be now?
Yeah. Yeah. Those flap those butterfly wings are always interesting to trace.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty amazing. So for you, Jennifer, do you think of a significant moment either of choice or happenstance that led you to where you are now?
What I'm discovering recently is I thought that my life had been led by luck or chance. I kind of felt like I was Moana being guided by the ocean. I might go off course and then the water would plop me back to where I belonged. But I actually think that that's not true. And it's something I'm learning now. I think the biggest thing was that things have happened when I have put it out there into the world about what I want to do, right? Or I've gotten it in me where I'm like, I have to create, I have to make, I have to do. That's when it might be a year later, it might be 5 years later, it might be a month later, that suddenly movement and things start happening, opportunities present themselves. And what the challenge is, especially as an artist, is to like force yourself to put yourself out there and to do the thing. Because it's very easy to wonder and wish about, oh, I have this idea, but I don't know about executing, or it's too hard, or I'm just going to take classes and I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. You're ready. Do it. Right. So I think that that's something that I kind of got in a trap for a long period of time where I was like, I'm not ready, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy enough. And that's the kind of stuff that holds you back. And then nothing happens, or you're waiting for people, especially as an actor, to give you opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else is going to give me my destiny. Oh my, it's death. It's death for an artist or a creative person. The key to success is making it, doing it, putting yourself out there, meeting people. That's when it all happens.
All right, Ken, let's mark the time and clip out the wonderful motivational speech. I think it's extremely accurate, Jennifer. I agree with you so much. And I think that's where I think a lot of us struggle is not is the just leap, just do it. And that is what makes things happen. Not always, but certainly nothing is going to happen if you don't push forward like that.
Yeah. It's so difficult.
Yeah. I'm gonna flop the next two questions around because we're kind of on the topic of this other question. Ken, when you're at a crossroads type moment, where there are a couple different paths before you, and you think they might lead to pretty different places, how do you go about making the decision of what path to take? Do you have any sort of system? Is it following your gut, the ocean, or is it different depending on the situation?
I do follow that ocean in my gut a lot, and it does work, despite maybe staying in one place too long, or there's been some decisions I didn't make that I'm glad I didn't make. We talked a lot about the risks not taken last week, and some of those big decisions. There's a lot of times when I just kind of get that feeling, right, and we all try to understand that, explain it the best way we can. I was once offered a job, a promotion to go to New Orleans to be a security director, and it was sold to me as, hey, you like doing comedy in your spare time, right? You know, there's some clubs there, and you can go be a big fish in a small pond while you're doing this job for us. And everyone, my bosses who knew me and who really did like me, because I used to perform every year at the company Christmas party, and I was liked by my bosses. But they were trying to get me to go somewhere, and I remember thinking, yeah, that sounds great. And then I drove home going, oh no, that's not right. I just know it's not right. And sure enough, it wasn't. It was post Katrina, and it was a bad situation. And the guy who ended up taking the job lived in his office for 8 to 9 months. And it wouldn't have been good. And and not that they were lying to me, they needed someone good in the position, but you just know. So I don't necessarily have a system. Maybe I should. The pros and cons kind of list. I just kind of get that feeling of this is right for me. And then by the same token, I'm trying to Be better at going, oh, this turned out to not be right for me, or turned out to be something that I need to now. This change needs to change. And that's maybe why I stayed some places too long. Also, it's comfortable. I knew like you, Jen. I knew from the beginning. I'm sure, like you, Joseph, too. Like I didn't want what I called the 9 to 5 working for the weekend life, and that's not a bad life, by the way. I have a lot of friends in that life, and having a great time. I have a friend of mine who made some decisions, and he's got the kids in the nice house and takes great trips and a good job, and the weekend's off, and he coaches baseball on Saturday, and he's happy. And I know he's happy. I would not be happy in that situation. And I had to know that early on. Again, all these kind of feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. That's why I looked down the path of, what would it be like to work at Kinko's and just have lots of money and have everything be settled? And it was just sort of like this dark, ominous, sad. What's my soul? What's my shriveled, dying soul going to do with that 401k? Nothing.
Yeah.
So I definitely get you at that. Jennifer, how are you feeling about making decisions right now when you're in a crossroads type moment?
I don't trust myself. I think I'm like the mermaid, right? The kid who wants to be the mermaid. I'm like, I have a steady job. I'm going to quit and I'm going to go for it. Be an actor. And then every time I want to get out of acting, I get a ton of commercial auditions, and commercials, it's a good living. So I get pulled right back in. Yeah. That's kind of where I am right now. So, and right now I feel like I'm doing a Hail Mary pass on all fronts, because I'm at the point where I'm kind of tired. I'm kind of tired of this. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do. I don't know what that is. I know what my heart wants to do. I know what I feel passionate about, but that doesn't mean that I can make money, make a living, right? So that's the challenge. And that's what happens as you get older, is that those decisions are much scarier, and you don't have as much time to dedicate to having things pan out. I'd love to go intern at some places. Can I really do an internship right now? Probably not. So,
that side of it is very hard too, which is maybe a conversation about ageism. And there's a lot of other isms out there that are, should be considered as well. But going to I have a friend of mine who a couple years ago was like, I need work. Things aren't working out the way I thought. He's in the creative field, but he found something relatively in another department, the development side. And he sat for an interview, and the person interview was like, oh my God, you're great. And you've done some of this stuff before, but I got to tell you, you're in your 40s and this job's kind of above you, or you're kind of above the job. And I don't think you'd be happy. And he kept telling her, I will be happy because I want to do this and I want to pursue this now. And she didn't hire him. And she just kept saying, nah, you should be going for other jobs. And I get I'm not 30. I get I'm not 24 out of college. I want this job. And you're telling me I'm qualified. You're telling me I'm overqualified. And she wouldn't do it. That's the thing to consider too. What you're talking about, Jen, of can you always change or try something new? Yes. But you might run into those weird obstacles that you can't get around.
Yeah,
we're very true.
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about age more. And what I hear in that, Ken, is trying to avoid a lawsuit. I think that's a standard, not a standard. I think that's a line that people use sometimes when they don't want to hire an older person, but they might get in trouble for saying you're too old, and try to talk the person into like, you're too powerful. Yeah. Your age has made you too mighty, and you'll destroy the building with your might. Not, I don't want to be around a 40-year-old because that's not hip and cool. So we'll definitely dig you more into that, because that's a huge part of this roads not taking discussion. Jennifer, I love what you're saying, and I think it's always a balance. But I think when people get older as well, when I'm at a crossroads type moment, I think now I've really been thinking about how can I balance the lesson of shoot for what you want, don't settle, and just, even if that means whatever, I'm going to take an internship, but my goal is this, I'm shooting for that. I want to do this but I have to eat. And, and I think it is easier when you're younger. It's still a challenge. To just, this is a part of my life where I just work really hard. I think young people are working too hard, and gig economy is not great and all that stuff. But I think about like, how can I balance shooting as high as possible while also enjoying the day to day of my life? I think that's the hardest balance to figure out. I'm going to shoot for this, but then if it doesn't work out, and if I try something for 5 years, will I look back and still go, hey, but I've enjoyed my day to day life. Yeah,
right.
A big challenge. And with that, I think we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back, talk about some age stuff, some family stuff, lots of easy topics in just a moment.
Before we do that, we're going to give you a free audiobook recommendation here, and I'm going to choose this one here, The Comedians, Drunks, Thieves, Scoundrels, and the History of American Comedy by Cliff Nestorhoff. It is a spectacular deep dive into the history of comedy, a lot of focus on stand-up going back to 1860s, and you will see in it some reoccurring themes where a lot of people feel society has changed and therefore there's a war on comedy, and that's not true. And this is a wonderful book to explore all that, the actual history of this art that, we have all pursued in some way or another and are continuing to pursue. Check it out, The Comedians by Cliff Nestorhoff, by downloading a free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. All right, quick break. On the other side, we're going to still explore those paths not taken. We are back here to OtherCenter, the main show, episode 605 in an ongoing series of ForceCenter and OtherCenter here. Joseph, we're having a lot of fun. I hope I didn't turn it too dark too early, but there's a lot of joy in all these things as well. Sometimes having a Saturday off is a great thing for me.
No, it should be dark early, dark in the middle, and dark at the end. No, it's honest. Honest is what matters, and it is not dark. And I don't think you're alone about having not just a rosy picture of what you might be. So I think it is a great place to start with that reality. So want to talk a little bit about, we're focusing, I think, a lot on career stuff, but roads not taken also really means personal choices. And maybe we can talk about some of these things more later if we want, because they're big topics. But the three of us all kind of have different kinds of family of choice that we have made. Ken, you are in a long-term committed relationship on the technical level, engaged, as you've mentioned. I'm married but don't have kids. Ken, as far as I know, you don't have kids.
As far as I know, I don't have kids, yes.
Jen, married and with kids. Jen, I want to start with you. Were those, and I know this is a huge question, but were those major family decisions difficult? The decision to choose your husband, the decision to have kids, were those difficult, or did you feel like, yep, these are the things I've always wanted, and this is the road I've always intended to take?
Yeah, I think I always envisioned myself getting married, having kids, and I had terrible dating history. But when I met my husband, it was just like easy. And that was my clue where I was like, oh, this is a healthy relationship. This is how it's supposed to be. So that worked out great. And then we had talked about having kids, and it just happened really fast. I was not prepared for that. But it was, we knew we wanted to have that. What I didn't know was how much time children take. I love my kids. I love them. But oh my gosh, like they have enriched me as an actor. They have enriched me. They've unlocked emotions I did not know that were there. What I've come to learn, which I've now been seeing a lot of this on TikTok and Instagram, is a lot of us parents realize that we have ADHD or some form, we're like neurodivergent, and we've had all these coping mechanisms in place until we have children, and suddenly all these coping mechanisms, they go, you can't have them anymore, and our world is disrupted. And for the first time, I'm like, I think I have ADHD. I'd never thought that in my life until after I had children. And I'm realizing all the things, the careful world that I had built, right? My systems in place. Kids come and they're like Godzilla, just wrecking it all. And so I struggle with it every day. And, it really is a challenge on top of being an artist. And for an artist, we need time, whether you're a writer or a painter or an actor. Time is the way that you create, and you don't have that. But in some sense, it's good because I have a finite amount of time. I have to have time management, which I'd never had in the past. So I know when the kids are at school, I have to get it done. If it doesn't get done, then that's my fault, right? So, yeah, kids are a joy, but oof, it's a lot.
And Ken, for you, I know we've discussed the wonderful stories of you and Grace meeting. Was getting into a committed relationship, was that something that you struggled to picture, or did that also feel like it had just the sort of like everybody grows up and gets married and has kids, that'll happen to me too?
I mean, there's a little bit of that will happen to me too. And then I was, a lonely lad, and again, going that thing. Even we talk about career choices. If you want to be an accountant, you need to go study and train and become an accountant. You don't just wander into the job, right? So same with relationships and a lot of self-care and self-growth. And I didn't have a lot of that early on, and struggled to figure that out because I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe I belonged, whether on a comedy stage or on a date. I didn't believe I belonged there. And that's been a recurring theme in my life a long time. So then when it started, it seemed like it wasn't going to happen. I did have, relationships along the way. So but before that happened, I just was lost. I didn't know how. I just figured it just happened. Right. And so then it started happening. But then I discovered once I got into some relationships, good ones. I've been fortunate to not have horrible ones. My first actual relationship was a 2-month, just crazy. I couldn't believe I was so untrained and naive to have a relationship. Like, I'll tell you off there the stuff that went on where I was just like, I can't believe what that was happening. She had a drug dealer. What is that?
What?
Oh, my car got taken. It's a comedy movie. I'll send Joseph to write a script from 72 hours. But once I actually got in the relationships, I realized some things. I always thought I wanted kids. And then when my career didn't go right away the way I wanted to, or things were changing, I realized kind of what, not to the full degree that you're talking about, Jen, but of like, hey, this could potentially change if I have a kid. And then I always seem to be with partners that did not want kids. Then I did date a mother. It was great, but it was a weird situation. I wasn't around her child for a lot of reasons. All good, by the way, but it was just like I didn't get to experience that side of it. And now I'm in a relationship where kids are off the table. It's not on the plan, and I'm okay with it. There's always that 2% of, well, you make a decision and this is it, this sticks. But my aunt and now late uncle did not have kids, my dad's brother. And I had asked both of them once. And my uncle passed away in 2012. I asked my aunt after, do you regret not having children? And she said, I not for a second. Not for a second. Wasn't the life I wanted. Where other people, have tried. So my other aunt and uncle, my uncle got remarried, and my aunt, it's all she wanted was kids and couldn't get pregnant. And then finally did. And my twin cousins, who are now in their early 30s, they're not kids anymore. So it's two sides of it. But I was always, I was surprised I ended up where I'm at. But I think that goes to I just thought that stuff happened, right? What you're talking about, Joe. You just get married, you get a job, you get the kids. I just thought that's what happens. And then when I realized, no, that doesn't have to happen. You have some choice over that. Maybe, right. You have some choice over where you want to go with that. Then I saw other options, and I liked the other options once they emerged. And that's where I ended up.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good path and a really good thinking through how you ended up where you are from just the general societal, like, that's the super straightforward thing to do that many people do, get married and have kids. And you see that modeled a lot. So the parts of it that are active decision making and the parts of it that are surprises are really important. I think for me, similar dating path of being desperately lonely. And yes, I think back to kind of early relationships with girlfriends, and they're definitely all, really not great, early 2000s dating comedies. Like, that was a dumb choice. That was a weird thing to say. But I really, 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 really wanted to be in a relationship. It occupied so much of my mental and emotional energy. And I had a good relationship. I mentioned before, lived with a woman. We were briefly engaged. It didn't work out. We're, great friends. But that was, kind of my first step into like, actual relationship, get beyond, what society tells you it is, or whatever weird baggage you've got from your favorite movie. This is a real human relationship.
Yep.
And then very similar to you, Jennifer, when Sarah and I just started dating, it was just like, this is just wonderful and easy, and people say what they mean. This is an absolute
right.
easiest choice in my life.
Yeah.
Sometimes the amount that my wife was just like, yep, let's do it. Let's get married. We got married real quick. I sometimes look back and like, she doesn't always make decisions that fast. I'm extremely lucky that she was like, yes. So the getting married was, I wanted it. I was trying to date, but it also just did happen. I just found a partner and we loved each other. And it was like, hey, it all worked out. The myths are true. And then the kids thing has been much, much more difficult with, really vacillating back and forth about what it was. And we can use this to segue into the next conversation. I think really wrestling between career stuff and kids really is what got me to sort of start thinking about, I need to think of my life as I am someone who wants to live a minimum of 8 different lives in the lifetime I have. And I can't. Yeah. And I have to acknowledge that. And, kids are probably not going to happen. And there are some days where I'm like, thank goodness that's not the life I want. And then there are some days where I'm just like, but I always pictured it. And I want I want this part of my wife and I to continue in days where I feel real sad about it. But it helps me a lot to just accept it as, yep, that's a road not taken, and that's okay. So I want to ask you both how you feel about it, because it's been a huge thing for me to deal with some of my anxiety about choosing paths, is just accepting the reality that we can only choose so many. And for some of the big things, it's helped me go from sort of anger and shame that I should have done this, I should have been better at that, to just, instead of anger and shame, just letting it be wistful and melancholy, and just sometimes, staring off into the horizon and going, there's some other universe out there with, Joseph, who's a therapist and has 3 kids. And that could have been a great life, but I can't choose everything. And it's helped me to just let it be a little wistful rather than beating myself up. So that's what I want to ask you both about. Jennifer, do you think accepting the reality that we can only make so many choices in our lifetime, does that help you with decision making?
I don't want to believe it. That's what that's my struggle. And I've had a lot of conversations with my husband and my therapist about this, because I did sacrifice my professional career because I had 2 kids. I could have had 1. We had 2. And it really was the second one, especially during the pandemic, where it was like, wow, okay, this is a whole other life. You could kind of hang on to a little bit of your old life if you have 1 kid. When you have 2, you're all in. And, and so that's been a huge realization. And so as I've been trying to figure out my next moves career wise, my husband's like, it's okay. You chose to be a mom and, do your acting and all that stuff too. He's like, but you really did sacrifice. You sacrificed for our family. Oh, it's going to get me emotional, but it's, it is a sacrifice. So that's why if you don't want to have kids, if you're listening, it's okay. It's okay. Don't let society tell you that you have to have children, because it is a tremendous sacrifice. And I'm thankful that younger people nowadays are making that choice for themselves rather than feeling this pressure from their families or society of this is what you have to do. You don't have to do it. You can, do whatever you want. Or if you want to have kids, go for it. But yeah, it is a path that I chose. And so, so this is the path that I'm on.
Yeah.
I think well said, and I think great for people to hear it from all perspectives, because I think there can be so much different pressure that people encounter from parents, from just like follow the life plan, from I've certainly encountered people who have kids who are sort of like, your life is complete, you won't experience actual life. And I've certainly encountered people who don't have kids who are like, there's breeders everywhere having way too many kids than the world needs. Like I have, encountered both extremes of people being extremely passionate about their opinion. And I think it's great what you said, Jennifer, that is so kind and thoughtful about people being realistic about the decision, but making it for themselves with as much clarity about what they want as possible.
Yeah. And there are some, doctors and lawyers at my daughter's schools, and they have full on freaking careers, and they're in the PTA, and they are incredible, and they have 3 kids. So that's possible too. That's just not me, as I've learned. Maybe that's my ADHD, wanting to do a million things at once. But yeah, you can have a career and kids, but everyone's different. So.
How many nannies do they have? How many nannies are they employed?
But very true. Very true. Tutors and whatnot. Yeah.
That's the other thing, is money makes everything easier, right? So, and I think for us at different points, that has definitely been, a part of the equation of, do we have enough money to just make problems go away? It's the huge difference of like, well, we got 2 cars, or if the car breaks, we pay for it. Money and time, big things. Ken, how about you? Does accepting that you can only make so many choices help, or does it actually cause more anxiety?
No, I like that. It's the be here now philosophy. And I my default position is melancholy and whimsical and wistful. But I think I described last week my first trip to New York, and just kind of crying before the 30 Rock building in New York, and realizing I was the one who caused that to fail, because I just didn't try, and that was an acceptance point, and I felt good going forward. And a lot of great things happened after that, letting go some of the anxiety over things that you didn't do. Not so much the failure is one thing, I tried out for that baseball team, and I was in the batting cage, and I looked up and I saw the coaches had their backs to me, and I knew I wasn't going to make the team at that moment in time. But I did it. I was there, and that's a different feeling versus not making the choice or not giving yourself the chance. But be here now. It's the only thing I think I can do is try to take the lessons forward, try to find myself here, and try to break the habits. To me, the breaking the just who we are, those personal themes and the things we keep coming back to, and how I remember a project I quit in the 8th grade that I quit out of fear, laziness, and was not encouraged to try harder, and I quit, and it was a project with a friend of mine, and he ended up winning the entire, it was a contest thing through schools, like a play. He ended up winning the whole thing, and I didn't. Not only not win, I didn't go to DC to take the trip with him, and I didn't do any of that. And I remember thinking, all right, I failed there. I didn't make, and I just didn't process it, right? And I let that pattern repeat. So part of my be here now is we are here now, and let's analyze what we can do going forward and what you really want to do. And as far as the kid thing, the family thing, it can be difficult. And I'll tell you what, though, I've number one, your perspective, Jen, as a mother, as a woman in this world, is tremendously more valuable than ours over this discussion. It's going to hit you absolutely harder than it will ever hit a man in the situation, unfortunately, and just truthfully. But I have a lot of respect for where you are and where you're at, including your struggles with it, versus I never trusted my friends, and I had them who were like, well, okay, we're going to get married at 22. We have to have our first kid by 23, our second kid by 25. And I had friends like that. My cousins did that. They got married at 20 and they had 3 kids by 23. And now they're enjoying a little bit more of an adult life now in their life.
Right.
But it was this weird mechanical check of the box that I never trusted, and it was for them. And I'm not like you, Joseph. I don't want to wade too much into those damn breeders. I don't like that. Okay. My first real serious girlfriend hated the idea of kids to the point where I once almost had to fist fight a comedian because she had insulted him before the show, and he went after her on stage and dropped the C word on her and all this kind of stuff. And I was gonna have to fist fight this guy I knew for a long time. That started from her just insulting his desire to have kids and a marriage with his fiance, to now she is married with 2 kids and living in Virginia and is very happy, but also honest about some of the struggles. Anyways, I don't want to get off
Well, this is definitely something that we could talk about more. It's kind of a big topic, so we can maybe revisit and examine more aspects of it. And speaking of big topics, do want to talk about age, because I also think when you're choosing different paths, there's a lot of anxiety about age. I think a lot of us do get pressure, sometimes external, sometimes from ourselves, like the couple you were talking about, Ken, that we think we're supposed to be at a certain place in our lives by a certain time. Ken, when was the first time you felt that you were too old to take a specific path? And were you right, or was it bullshit placed on you by society?
Bullshit. 25. 25.
25?
And I don't, this isn't a direct finger pointing at it, but I was and still am a big sports fan, still am a big music fan. And it's not, when you're watching sports, and the age things changed a little bit in sports because of the way athletes can handle their bodies and train them and keep them in shape. But you used to read articles of well, he's 27 now. He can't pitch like he used to. And so that got in my head because I wanted to be a player. So it was if I'm not in the major leagues by 22, I'm done, right? And then the music, the old joke of the Beatles did Sgt. Pepper. They were all 25, 26. What have you done with your life? And I used to internalize that a lot. You absolutely internalize that a lot. And there's unfortunately some truth to those and various things. We were talking about that earlier, but I've removed some of those age boundaries as best I can. They still hit into place. But I remember, I've mentioned this before, but discussing with my buddy Scott Mantz, when all this digital media stuff started springing up 10 years ago. And I was I don't know. And I was kind of being negative about, talking Star Wars. And I was I don't know, Scott, I can't be 50 talking Star Wars, right? Meaning that doesn't seem like a thing. And Scott literally looked at me and went, well, why not? We haven't gotten there yet. We don't know that. Why? Star Wars is still a thing. Star Wars itself is now 50 years old. Why? Films 50, why? And I remember thinking, yeah, I guess you're right. And that's changed a lot too. So yeah, trying to take those boundaries of age off on all sides of the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it is just always a pressure from just certainly American society in general. I've had a stand-up joke that there are only 3 ages in America: not as old as you want to be, 25, and might as well be dead. Which is, I think, the way you're often made to feel. I think, and I think there obviously there are some things with sports or other physical, really, really physical professions where age does start to cut you off. And if you want to be an actor, unless you want to do a real crazy take, you got to be a certain age to play certain characters. Not everybody. You can be Steve Buscemi, and you can be a kid at 59 in a 30 Rock bit. But I remember telling my girlfriend at the time, I think I had just turned 26, and I was really depressed because I could still do comedy, but I was getting too old to be the young, wild comedian.
Right.
And it's that window's closing. And she's like, well, you like Phil Hartman, right? And yeah, people can keep doing comedy. It's fine.
Yeah.
But that was one of the first, I'm timing out. And I talk about it a lot, I think, on podcasts and with friends, because I always struggle with it. And I'm getting the thing on Facebook where photos are popping up from about 10 years ago. I've been in LA in March for 10 years. And the photos pop up and I'm I look so young. And I felt so old and so afraid of my age. And I'm really trying to use that to help me of okay, don't repeat the cycle again in 10 years. So for me, it is an ongoing battle to just say, if you're alive, you still have paths, and you got to be realistic about it. If there's some paths that are going to be harder because of age, but if you're alive, the path is open. And trying to be more, trying to convince myself of that and talk myself into that every day. How do you feel about how age relates to choices, Jen?
It's interesting because when I look at job boards, it seems pretty clear that if I was a younger person just coming out of college, I would know a lot of the lingo or the tools that people are using in these jobs. So I do feel, because of my age, and because I've been kind of disconnected from that professional world, that it's harder. And I know, like what you were saying, Ken, I'm sure that there might be some resistance if I went to an interview based on my age. People just like to tend to hire younger people because they feel that they're more malleable, or they feel like they can take advantage of them more, right? Because or because they don't have families. And so that's something that I know I'm going to battle. But at the same time, what's interesting is that online, it feels like, I don't want to say older people, but it does feel like there's a more vocal online community of older people from our generation and even a little bit younger saying, no, we have buying power. We do care about these things. We are engaged online. There is an audience to talk to. And I've certainly seen that with TikTok, of all places, where I've been talking more about 80s and 90s things. And I am getting so many comments from women my age and even older. And that is fascinating. That I feel like things have really shifted in recent years, because for a long time, I always felt like I was trying to speak to younger people. And now I feel like I'm talking to people my age. And that's really exciting. And that to me is where I want to be. So that's my challenge, is I want to stay online. But a lot of online companies want younger people. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but
I think it's just this weird, it can be like this weird vicious circle where because so much marketing in America has been so obsessively youth centric, that I think there's something like a knee jerk thing of like, but if our company, if our hip software company has a bunch of 40 or 50-year-olds in it, we somehow won't be hip.
right.
And like, almost like this, I think the marketing, the way we talk about youth in advertising, where everything needs to be associated with the young and the shiny, almost seeps down to almost an irrational level, where some of that is just like, but if old person around, not as good. It's not even rational.
It's such an old school mindset, right? Like that, we look at our generation where we brought back the comic book movies and all these fandoms, really. So, and there's value in the fact that we actually experienced it. We're like cultural historians. We lived it, right? I mean, but it's true. I remember when I was at E and in my 20s, and there were like 40 and 50-year-olds. They were seen as old geezers, which is just shocking to think now, which is probably still the case at E. But no, we have a lot of value that we bring.
Yeah, well, it's funny you talk about like just weird societal pressure. Some of it comes from, I will say, good spot. Like two of my favorite little sketches, all through the years are Molly Shannon's, I'm 50, and then the kid in the hall, he's hip, he's cool, he's 45, where you're like, oh, look at this, they're making fun of the old person that thinks they're young, and Molly Shannon has well shot beyond that age, as of all the kids in the hall, and as me, I am 2-3 years past that sketch, and it's just at the time you don't think that's even possible. Age.
I'll try to remember to write that down. This is a great OtherCenter topic: the delicate art of being honest about your age while still engaging in modern society without pulling a "How do you do, fellow kids?" What's your new hip word? I'm going to ruin it. Fascinating conversation. In that spirit of the many roads that we could still all take, Jen, what choices do you feel are in front of you right now?
I think it's yet to be written. I have a lot of ideas. That's for sure. I am an ideas person. So being able, and I'm actually backlogged right now with my content. I've shot so much, and I have yet to edit it.
That's great.
So, yeah, well, so
not the editing, but it's amazing to be ahead on content.
Right. So I have a lot of ideas. I want to build a studio in my garage. That's a project my husband and I really want to work on. I was doing the Furby research, and I love researching, doing these deep dives. And I was studying about the North American International Toy Fair in New York. And I really would love to go in 2025 and report on the upcoming toys. What's going to be hot? I love toys. I love collectibles. It's something that I'd like to explore further.
Oh, I love that. I had written as a joke a few years back. I had worked on. It's a long story, so I won't go into it. Anyway, I was working on a kind of a multiverse story of all the different things I could have been. And one of them was a professional toy collector, and now that really is a thing.
It really is,
right?
Yeah. So maybe that's the pivot I'll make. I'm going to be a professional toy collector. Ken, how about you? What do you feel? What choices do you feel are in front of you right now? What roads are you looking at?
To be it, to believe. I have some individual, specific ideas that I'm working on and things that are happening, and I might need to figure out a job situation soon on the side here, replace that. But I said something to you a couple times, Joseph, over off-air stuff of whether when I was working for Fandom or recently I was working for New Rockstars, and you get a writing assignment, and I would put hours of work into it and get paid, but then the video would go out and it's not mine. I don't see it. Even it's got my voice and name on it. It's not mine. It's the company's, and I just da-da-da-da. And I would tell you, like, man, why can't I do that for my own stuff? Right? Hours of work. Why do I have to have someone else to tell me to do it? Now I work hard and I spend a lot of time on things, but why can't I put some of that energy and structure into other things I'm doing? And that's where I'm at right now. All the specific ideas I have and things I'm working on, I'm always going to take a shot. And I'm always going to be a little spread, not too thin, but I want to write a book of poetry in 2024. I'm releasing some songs that I co-wrote very soon. I got the album out, which was a big step, not for getting an album out. Yay, I'm a comic with a thing. But like, I used to put all the obstacles and excuses in front of me towards doing something like that. And it all boils down to believing not in yourself, but believing that you're good enough or that you belong here. My biggest thing is with every choice is I feel maybe in the back of my head, I don't belong here. And sometimes it comes through. I believe I belong in podcasting, but even then that's come with the struggles, but comedy, writing, putting videos out, putting more of myself out there like you, Jen, of getting a studio built was the big thing for me. Because the excuse I'd put in front of myself was, well, I don't know what chord to get, so therefore I don't really belong in those studios that everyone else has. And I had a great set of shows in New York, but my good buddy John Mariano, ForceCenter, OtherCenter listener as well, he just looked at me in the eyes in the bar and said, "Your biggest issue all the time is you just don't believe in yourself. You are great on that stage and you belong there. You don't believe it." And he's right. And that's the struggle. I walk into comedy clubs and I look around and I go, I hope no one uncovers that I'm here. I hope no one spins around on me and says, you're not a comic. What are you in this green room? And that's a little nagging voice that goes back to my childhood. So the steps forward are no longer letting those excuses line up in front of me. I'm going to believe that I belong here. The success after, the oodles of cash, I'm sure will roll in. That's to be decided on another day. But what's got to be decided right now is belief.
And
I believe in you. I mean, honestly, Ken, I see you as such a success, and I'm always so inspired because you are always doing things, and you're always helping people, which is such a wonderful quality.
I like coaching.
But in an industry where people are so selfish and so self-centered and really ruthless, you are always the first person to you've brought so many opportunities into my life because you're like, hey, I know somebody. Hey, like you're always extending favors for other people. And I thank you. And I'm sure so many of us thank you for that. And you have such a big heart and you're so gosh dang talented. Oh my gosh.
I will not make
so talented.
A snarky joke to deflect. I will just say thank
you. Well, Ken, how do you wrestle with this I'm trying to think of the right word for it, kind of dichotomy. I think because of the things you've gone through in your life that you've talked about, of, depression and family issues and, internalizing the sort of negative criticisms, you have a sense of humor and a underdog charm where you make jokes, at your own expense, which is great. We all do. But there is a image of you as a comic underdog. But I've seen it in person. People come up to you and compliment you and ask you for advice and mentorship. And it's a weird position to be in. I'm always fascinated with it because my deep love of Frank Sinatra, he was the most successful any living human had been in the 1940s. It fell apart. He hit rock bottom where he literally walked on the streets and nobody wanted to talk to him. And then he made this triumphant comeback and became even more successful than he had ever been. And through his whole career, he was able to kind of straddle this world where, like, yes, I am one of the most successful humans to ever walk the earth. But since everybody saw me fall, I also have this, like, but I'm one of you. I'm an underdog, root for me, right. Help out poor Frank Sinatra, the underdog, one of the most famous, successful people ever. And sometimes it's interesting to watch you at like a convention where I know you are feeling real feelings, but you're inhabiting this space where you're both an underdog that people want to help, but also come to for advice and mentorship. Do you ever think about that perspective of yourself or that sort of dichotomy? I
think I do. Often I give advice to younger podcasters or YouTubers or just folks and just be like, I say, don't be like me, right? like don't. That might be to what you're talking about belief. Yeah, no, it's weird. I once, there was a great interview with Will Forte on Marin years ago. And they were talking about this kind of stuff. And, I've been around Mark enough on the Comedy Store patio to know that he is truly grumpy. That is not an act, right. Down to his core. But he had a great conversation about that, self-doubt and everything, talking about Will Forte. Will Forte is someone I looked up to for years. And coming out of the groundling system. And Will said, on the surface, I believe in myself on a level that's so egotastical that it's almost comical. But on a level below, I know that I'm a complete bag of shit and that none of it is that's a lie. But he goes, then there's a third level that knows that maybe that's not true. and I remember hearing that, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, but I was like, yeah. And that's, and self-loathing and self-deprecating humor is never going to leave me because, I never want to, number one, believe my own hype, but I also think it's just like, this is my experience. And a lot of that is like, it's who I am. And this is my experience of the world. And maybe you can hop on the train. But there was a song lyric I just heard the other day, on playing my radio show. And the first line is, self-loathing is a form of self-obsession. And I really was like, yeah, that's true. That's really true. Self-loathing when pushed too far is just you consistently looking inward and ripping it apart to where you're obsessed with yourself in a dark, twisted way. And I'm trying to work past that. I don't know what that looks like humor-wise. Trying to figure that out. But yeah, no, I can't. I don't have a great answer for it, Joseph. Other than you're right. As always, you could have been a therapist with 3 kids. I'm trying to figure that out as I go forward. And rediscover myself.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And in your comedy, you've been doing a great job working through all those levels of self-realization.
Yeah.
I think it's great that you bring up Will Forte and comedians in general, because I think that's all often this sort of high wire act of certainly of comedians where they'll have these sets about how awful their life is, like in this beautiful theater where you've reached with 5,000 people, like, yes, please tell me how much, it's always a little bit of an awkward thing. And in the famous sort of rock star second album, where like the first album is full of like, these are the actual bad things that happened to me in my youth and in my small town. And then I remember being a kid and being like, I'm listening to Metallica's like 5th album. They tour the worworld internationally, and I'm listening to a song about how their parents won't let them do things. It's an interesting thing to attain any level of success and still speak to the human truths that we have that we still feel all of the shame and fear and all that, so it remains relatable.
Yeah.
Right.
So true. Oasis hits the scene like, we got to get out of Manchester. And then the third album was Everyone's Taking Our Cocaine.
Right. I sometimes think that's like some of the appeal of, say, like a David Bowie or Prince, or like, yes, I am an ethereal god. That's what all my albums are going to be about.
They're about.
Yeah. I think for myself, and just keep this short because we're going long, I think paths in front of myself, I'm trying to reckon with the fact that I want to do lots of things, and I want to, as you said, Jennifer, early on, I think it's really important to use your skills, to share them with the world. I don't think it is just egotistical. I think we're all bettered by seeing one another's work and seeing the inspiration of creativity or the difference of creativity. My life is made better by a random Furby video that makes me happy and makes me think about something else, and I just think it's joyful to see people using the skills that they have. It just makes me feel alive to see other people do it. So I really feel bad about skills that I feel like I have that skill. Other people can judge whether it's good or not for them, but I want to use it. So part of the reason of trying to focus on filmmaking is that it's the way to use is many different things that I'm interested in. So I'm really trying to focus on that. I'm really trying to be aware of having maybe tried to do too many things at a time. I had a really nice conversation with some old friends in Portland last weekend where they're asking me about doing more performing. And it's like, I love to. There was a time in my life where I thought if I go a month without performing, I will not be myself and I will fold up and die. And I'm not performing much at all, that it's a choice because I want to focus on the filmmaking. And it was, they were being really nice and encouraging me. Like, well, couldn't you just hire someone to book some shows? And then you don't have them. I just wanted to be like, stop being nice. I'm trying to make a choice. I'm trying to focus.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Hard to focus. So when we talk about the galaxy far, far away, we often talk about its themes of mentorship and guidance that has popped up in our discussion here. Jennifer, if a 20-year-old came to you and wanted your advice on how to choose paths, what might you say to that 20-year-old?
Well, I would say if you want to do anything creative, the best thing you can do is do it. You can take classes, sure. But like I said before, don't get too comfortable being in the class environment because that can trick your brain into think that you're actually doing the work, but you're not actually necessarily doing the work. You're honing your craft, but you need to go out into the world and make it. And whether that's a short film with friends or painting or whatever it is that you want to be doing, you have to do it. Another thing I would recommend is if they want to be creative, to get in marketing or a business class. Now that's a class I think every artist should take because that is the challenge. Is so many of us want to make our art and then it's like, okay, now what? How do I get this so that people can see it and people can experience it? We have to get used to marketing ourselves and finances and all that stuff that I know I have difficulty with.
Okay. Well, to play the underdog card, Ken and our answers are not going to be as good as that. That was a perfect answer. No, it's so practical. So practical. I'll share some thoughts and we'll end with Coach Ken's mentorship, because you actually do spend a lot of time mentoring people. I think for myself, I always wanted to try to, when I've had the opportunity to talk to people who are younger than me and trying to figure things out, I think it is a battle to be honest with yourself of what do you really, really want? What's your goal in doing this? Could be, particularly when you get into like creative stuff, sometimes people are just like, I want to be famous. Like that's my goal, period. Or I just want to make a bare minimum living at this or that. And I think figuring out what people truly want, because it's so much easier now than it's ever been to play the comparison game and to just go on social media and you see a person with a shiny thing and you go, well, that looks cool. I want that. and not really ask yourself, but do you really, is that really what you want? So I think it's always great to start with, what do you really want? And then I think I like to try to encourage people to aim high, because there's no, it doesn't hurt to just go, what is the biggest, most difficult thing you want? Why not start out trying for that? Because I think a lot of people try to tell you, like, start real small, stay in your lane. And why not just, hey, if you, and some of it's practical, of like, yeah, you got to start in a small market. That might be utterly true for that specific profession. You could still go with it of like, yep, and I'm only going to stay in that small market for 6 months because this is my goal and I deserve it and I believe in it. And holding that in your heart and soul.
Yeah.
Yep.
How about you, Coach Ken? What's your advice?
Don't worry about the hit zone, not the batting stance. But also, true, when I was a coach, baseball, especially Little League, especially growing up in the 80s, there was a very specific, you swing like this, elbow up, the bat starts here, blah, blah, blah. But I broke it down when I coached to say, I don't care where you start. The important thing is the bat's got to be here when the ball comes in. It's the hit zone. If you can get there, and there's a technical side to it, hands here, this and that, bat up, swing with the hips, all those things. But I don't care where you start. I'm not going to put a mold on you. Find how to get to the hit zone. And that's some truth of all of this here, of what I would give the advice to anyone trying to find their path, no matter what the path is. And we're talking, the three of us talk about creative pursuits, because that's where our hearts went. If you're my accountant and he wanted to be an accountant, he had to seek that out. If you're like my mother, who really, really, truthfully, from a young age, wanted to be a mother and raise a family, that's what she wanted, and that's what she did. You have to, connect with what's there early. And often I think those early instincts, not that things can't change, but the real true early instincts that we feel are there. Jen, you doing a cereal commercial in your bedroom, me grabbing a microphone, talking to my dad's reel to reel. Joseph, you breaking down a theme of some TV show at Punky Brewster at 3. No, I don't know. But it's there, and don't be afraid to connect to that and build back to that. And then also the once you're starting the path, the one thing I've said before, and I wish I could say to myself, is work hard, especially early, because you don't realize that age thing you're afraid of isn't necessarily true. And I'm not talking about hustle culture versus being a party kid. I'm saying, for me, I wish younger, when I was in my 20s, that, all right, it's okay to say you're going to sit down at 8 o'clock and put on your sweatpants and play a video game. You can play Tony Hawk Pro Skate or whatever. But could you do that at 9 o'clock instead of 8? And what can you do with an extra hour? And I'm now trying to reapply that to my own life, because I felt I wasted a lot of the time. That's when I talk about hard work. And, I am hard working, but there's always a tendency to be like, yeah, but it's important for me to relax as well. It is. That's part of mental health. Can you do just that 1 more hour? What would you do with that 1 extra hour? And that's the thing I drill into the kids these days.
Yeah, it is a truth that one needs to take a break, but it is a truth that I have certainly taken advantage of in my past.
Yeah.
Like, if 4 hours of video games are good for me, think of the benefits of 4 straight days. I'm making good choices.
Yeah. Yep.
Definitely something that needs to be questioned. Great advice. And maybe someday you can take me out to the batting cage, Ken.
Get you into that hit zone.
Get me in the hit zone. All right. We're trying to wrap up with some fun things. So writing up this whole road not taken idea made me think of this game that I think a lot of people played called MASH, where you'd write down on the paper some ideas of where you might end up, and then there's a little paper game, and then you end up with this sometimes accurate, sometimes comic. I'm going to live here. I'm going to be married to this person. I'm going to blah, 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 blah. So I was like, I bet that exists online. And indeed it does. There is a MASH game, and I'll run it here on my computer, but Ken and Jennifer and I are going to enter for our podcast all the options, and then see what the future of OtherCenter is. So Jen, we got 3 options. The first question is colleges. We'll each enter one. What college should OtherCenter go to?
There's no choices. We get to pick whatever we want.
We got to be creative. We got to reach into our souls. This is
Okay.
a blank slate.
Why not go to NYU? Let's aim big.
Yeah. Love it. I think that maybe we need some different experiences in life. So I think that we should go to University of Minnesota Duluth on Lake Superior. It's often very cold. Ken, where do you think OtherCenter should go to college?
You know, a lot of friends of mine who went on to have very nice careers did start at CalArts. Can we go to podcasting course at CalArts? I don't know if that exists yet.
Ooh, yeah. Love it. Okay. Next up, spouse names. I suppose we could use our real partners' names, but that might be weird. Who should OtherCenter be married to, Ken?
I think it should be married to Mara Jade.
Nice. Since we're a podcast, I think we should be married to another podcast. So I'm going to put in Star Wars Explained.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, that's good.
Jennifer, who do you think our podcast should be married to?
George.
Possibly of the jungle, possibly not. We don't know.
Possibly the maker. Who knows?
Possibly, yeah. Oh, fair enough. All right. City. What city should OtherCenter live in? Ken?
OtherCenter should live in London.
Yeah.
Nice. That is very, very good. Jennifer, do you have a thought?
Sure. All right. Well, let's say London was mine. New York.
Oh, New York. Okay. All right. So some very, very New York vibes. So we need some kind of different choices. So I'm going to put in Poughkeepsie.
I researched moving there. There was a radio station I wanted to work there. But also there was a girl I liked who was going to Vassar.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. You know what? I changed it to Peoria because I like that old vaudeville saying of like, but how's it going to play in Peoria?
Yes.
So how's our podcast going to play in Peoria? All right. We got London, New York, Peoria. We move on. The next question is the number of kids. How many kids is OtherCenter going to have, Jennifer?
For fun, let's say 4.
4. All right. A handful. Ken, how many kids do you think the podcast should have?
The amount of podcasts that we have influenced directly or indirectly over the years is high. So I'm going to say 42.
Love it. And I have made the poor choice to write out the words, which takes longer time for some reason. I'm going to say that somehow our podcast removes humans from the earth. So it's -7. We're going to have negative. I don't know the implications of that. I just wanted to do something different. All right. College majors. What is OtherCenter going to major in, Jennifer?
Oh, geez. All right. Level of film studies. That's obvious.
Love it. I'm going to say we should go to physical clown school. Ken, what do you think OtherCenter should major in?
I think we're interpretive dancers. Interpretive dance.
These are all actually things. This one's not jokey. I'd like to do all these things.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're heading toward the end of 6 of 6 occupations. Okay. What is OtherCenter going to believe when Grover spins around? What profession does OtherCenter turn into, Jennifer?
I think a host of the Food Network show.
Yes.
That also sounds fun.
Yes.
Ken?
I think it's funny. I was going to go food too. I'll switch it around. We're going to be we're going to have a traveling book truck. We go around selling books to people.
Nice. And I'm going to put in my other dream, professional toy collectors, which we're really on the edge. We could make that one happen. Mm-hmm. All right. And continue. And I have to draw a spiral. I'm trying to do a good job.
That's right.
Real tight at the bottom. And now it's counting down ominously.
Okay.
There we go. And it's getting results. So if anybody wants to play this is mashapp.com /play mash online free. And you get to watch a pencil draw a line through the choices that aren't going to happen.
Right.
So it's like life, but happening really fast. It's kind of scary. Nope. No to you. You're not living in a mansion. Bye. In the way the pencil jumps around, it's like it's counting the spiral, but it looks like it's really thinking through it. It's having a hard time deciding who we should be married to.
Yeah.
It does not want to do that one.
It's a weird Ouija board just going around.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. We have a future for our podcast. Are you both ready?
Yes.
Discover your future. You will graduate from Cal Arts, majoring in film studies. Okay. And after graduating, you'll marry Mara Jade. You'll settle down in Peoria, live in a house, and spend your days as a traveling book truck.
Wow. That's
you
pretty
and
nice.
Right? Pretty good.
Yeah.
You and Mara Jade will have -7 kids.
There you go.
And then it says 0 girls and 0 boys.
That's beautiful. I like
the end. Yeah.
Wow.
Look at that. It's so easy to make choices ultimately.
Look it up. That's wonderful.
Yeah. The road not taken, where we were married to Mara Jade and live in a traveling book truck. So beautiful. Any final thoughts for either of you on the topic?
Here's the thing I'll say. The road's not taken. There's still roads rolling out in front of you. So which ones are you going to take now? And it's a good question to ask yourself every now and then.
Agreed. Jennifer, any final thoughts?
If you're weighing on a creative path or decision, you can always enter it into ChatGPT, and it will provide you an answer. You may not like it, or you can put it into this MASH app and just try your luck. Or a Furby, actually. The new Furby will tell your fortune.
What? Is it the one you're building in your lab?
This is the one I'm actually I ordered from Amazon. It was on sale. I got a Furby. It's going to tell my fortune, just like a magic 8-ball.
Nice. I'll end with somebody else's words. It's trying to decide a specific painting to do in college and having a lot of anxiety about it. And I had a dream, because I'd been listening to his music a bunch, where Desi Arnaz appeared to me in my dream and said, just do it. Just do the painting you want to do. And he was very firm. So wow. I will leave you with the words of Dream Desi Arnaz. Just do it. Ken, you want to let people know where they can find us?
Yes, here's where you can find us. We're on Twitter, ForceCenter Pod. We're on Threads as well. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube. Don't forget, next live show is October 27th, 2 p.m. Pacific. Podcast available, a lot of spots. Just search, you'll find us. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. And you can support us directly at patreon.com/ForceCenter as well. Follow me at Ken Napzok, or go to my website, kennapzok.com, for more information on things I do. Stand-up dates soon, including one late December up in Seattle for Christmas time. And once again, I want to point out my album, In My Day, recorded live in London, is available in a lot of spots. But check out kennapzok.bandcamp.com for a special edition of the album. 30 minutes of bonus content. Joseph, where can they find and follow you?
Yeah, you can follow me on all the social media at Joseph Scrimshaw. If you want to check out my short film, The Nightmare Adorable, that is playing at some different festivals. If you happen to live in Bulgaria or Las Vegas, there's some showings coming up there. I'll be keeping on updating my website at josephscrimshaw.com. Also on my website is a link to my Bandcamp albums. Ken doing his big album push and making this great choice to do the bonus version on Bandcamp has inspired me to actually promote the albums that I have there. People have been kindly picking them up over the last couple of weeks, and it really helps me get more funds for my production company to actually submit to film festivals, because that gets real expensive real fast. So you get a comedy album and I get to apply to more film festivals. That's all on my website, josephscrimshaw.com, if you are interested.
And Jennifer, take us home. Where are you to be found?
That's right. You can find me on TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138, YouTube, Instagram at Jennifer Landa, where I will be posting my Furby deep dive on the Furby scare of the 90s this week.
Can't wait. Wonderful.
Yeah. I know nothing about this, and so I want to ask you, but instead I'm just going to listen to your video. I can't wait.
Oh, good. It's a fun one.
Well, there we go. Joseph, that is it. We have taken this road right now. We'll see you next time here on Other Center.